Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Philadelphia. This is a donation reward movie reaction for Venom 0027. And yeah, I don't know anything about this movie. I've heard it mentioned by name, just randomly here and there throughout the years. I think it's well liked, but again, I know nothing. I know nothing about the plot. I don't know who's in it. I know nothing. So it's hard to really say a lot going into this. And even the title doesn't really tell you anything, because that just tells you, I guess, where it takes place. Like, that could mean pretty much anything. Because it's like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The first thing that comes to mind when I hear the word Philadelphia, because I'm a fat ass, is cream cheese. I don't know what Philadelphia is really known for. I guess maybe their sports teams, the Philadelphia Eagles and whatnot. That's the only sports team I know for them. I know Pittsburgh is steel. I know that's a steel city. But I don't know what Philadelphia is known for, so I really have no clue what this could be about. So going into this blind, like I said, it's kind of hard to really say much. Even right now, it's like I'm just kind of like explaining that I don't know anything in order to pad out these pre-thoughts a little bit. I don't even know when this came out, you know? I don't even know when this came out. I know nothing. And because I know absolutely nothing, other than, I guess, general runtime being just around 2 hours, including credits and everything. And I only know that because, you know, I brought it up on VLC Media Player already. But not knowing anything, I didn't want to look up anything either. I just did not want to know. I wanted to go into this as blind as I possibly could, because I was already as blind as possible. The only way I could go into a movie blinder is if it was literally a random file with no name, and I didn't even know what I was going to be watching, which would be pretty interesting, mind you, but yeah, like, I don't know what else to say. I just feel like these pre-thoughts should always be, it should always have some length to them, so it's like I kind of feel like I have to stall a little bit before we move on. But I guess if there's nothing else to talk about, no context at all, like, I don't even know what kind of movie this is. Like, it could be a drama, it could be an action movie, it could be a comedy. The title doesn't tell you anything. It could be a romance for all I know. I don't know. I have no clue. So we're just going to get on with it. We're just going to watch it and find out, I guess. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black, then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I wanted to look some stuff up after the reaction before I got to these afterthoughts, because I wanted to see, for a number of reasons, if this was based on a true story at all. And it is, but it's like names and everything were all completely changed, and the specifics, all of that jazz. It was inspired by a real story. And apparently there were some controversies in regards to that, because apparently the producers and stuff promised compensation, and there was like things just went wrong with that and all. I don't know all the details. I didn't look up every detail for it, but I did want to know. And it was inspired by a real life event. It's very obvious, I feel, why you chose for me to react to this, Venom. I don't think that's in question at all. Like, being queer and everything, it's like, and for a movie I've never seen and everything, it's like, this is almost kind of feels important. Like one of those films that I really should see as a queer person. I won't pretend to be super knowledgeable about everything with the AIDS epidemic. As I stated, I was born in 1992. The beginning of 92, but still 92. And it's like, by that point, like, the AIDS had already been discovered in America and like really made known about for over a decade. It was in 81 that it was really first, discovered. But apparently there's evidence that it had been around for a couple decades even before that. So when I grew up, throughout a good portion of my life, it's like this was a thing in the past that I only learned about through hearing some people talk about it here and there, or through connections that I had after having already come out. They didn't talk about this stuff much at all in school. It might have been mentioned once or twice, but that's it. And most of the time when I had heard it mentioned throughout a lot of my early life, it was usually in a very homophobic way. So even now, with having heard much more about it since coming out and everything, it's like, I still would not consider myself an expert. I don't know a lot of the details. Like, I only found out that it was first really discovered and made public in 81. I only found that out, like, today, when looking things up after the reaction. I knew it was in the 80s. I thought it was like more like 85 or 86. So it's like, I'm not an expert. But again, as I stated in the film, in the reaction, there are things that I obviously know. As a queer person, I kind of have to, in a way. And I'm not saying that like more in a literal sense, but it's like, it's one of those topics that is so important to, like, society in terms of queer people. It's like, of course I've heard about it. Of course I've learned things about it. It's like, it's practically impossible for me to not have, to some degree. But yeah. I'm saying all this to state that I don't know how entirely accurate this film was in its portrayals of things. I don't know all the details surrounding how AIDS affects a person. So I don't know how accurate that was in this film. I don't know all the details. But there were things that were obvious to pick up on. As I was saying while watching, it's like, obviously the entire thing about it being majority linked to gay men was a massive thing, and it was the entire gay panic, and was an extremely horrible time in that regard, and for those reasons. You had just a lot of homophobia running rampant from every angle. Just random people, but even the government, doctors. It was this entire thing, and it was never fair or okay. And you see how people would assume that you could contract it just by touching, like it's some cold or something. But it even states in this movie, it's like, no, that's not how it works. It can only be contracted through the exchange of bodily fluids. It's not something that you can get just by shaking someone's hand or giving them a hug or touching them on the cheek. That's not how it works. And while I don't know how accurate this film is in that portrayal, I kind of feel like it probably is pretty accurate, because this movie doesn't hold back. It makes a very huge point of showing how horrible and just absolutely terrifying it is. It doesn't sugarcoat it. It doesn't sugarcoat anything, really, in this film. It doesn't hide the terrors of how people even reacted to all of this. You saw it when they were coming out of the court in that one scene. You had the two sides of people holding their signs. You had the side of people whose signs were saying like all kinds of homophobic slurs and everything, and the other side was a lot more accepting. It was like this almost picket battle in a way. And it's like, yeah, that kind of thing happened for a lot of situations. And you heard people say things, or even just suggest them in a very underhanded way. You heard that a lot with the lawyers that that Tom Hanks' character was, suing in the first place. A lot of what they said, it was excessively homophobic, but they were wording it in a way to try and like squeeze it through without sounding too harsh. They were dancing around the terms. And even the lawyer, Denzel's character, even he started off extremely homophobic throughout a good portion of the film. And it was only through getting to learn more about what was going on, as well as becoming friends with Hank's character, that he was able to break out of it, and especially because of that opera scene. I mentioned it in multiple movies. Obviously, you have just big movies like Schindler's List, or oh God, what is the name of the film? I looked at it before the reaction to try and remember, and now I don't remember it. That's Jay when stuff like that happens. Should be right around here. Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption, or even The Green Mile. Like these movies, they have the one scene in them that like just really stands out and just really defines the film. And with this movie, it's definitely the opera scene, for me at least. It may be different for others. I don't know what others think of that topic in this movie or not, but that's kind of how I'm viewing it here. The opera scene to me was so powerful. It was like the song that was being sung. It was this cacophony of emotion, just with not much actually happening. not much was actually happening. Just Hank's character describing the song, what the opera singer was singing about, and his reactions to it, his honest, genuine, emotional reactions to it. And you saw, without a word being said in the regard, how it affected Denzel's character. And I'm sorry I keep referring to them as Tom Hanks' character and Denzel's character. You guys know at this point, I'm bad with names. Andy is Tom Hanks' character, and Denzel's character was Joe. Andy and Joe. But yeah, you saw how it was affecting Joe as he was hearing and watching Andy talking about this, singing about this. You even saw how the lighting changed just for the scene. It wasn't actually changing in real life. It was for the scene to emphasize the heaviness of the scene and the emotions that song brought to Andy's character, brought to his mind as he listened to it and shared it with Joe. It was exceptional, honestly. And I obviously have to mention the entire thing about the fact that we have Tom Hanks in the lead role here. Because this is a thing that's been brought up with Tom Hanks in other roles, such as Forrest Gump. The fact that he is not a part of the community he is representing. A straight man portraying a gay person in a film. And it's like, that's always a tough subject to think about, because especially within the time that this came out, being honest, a lot of queer people weren't being able to represent themselves. And for this being one of the first movies to address not only the AIDS epidemic, but also homophobia and whatnot. Not the first to necessarily have homosexual characters or whatnot in the films, but one of the first to really address this kind of thing in the public eye. Unfortunately, we weren't going to get, like, representation portrayed by us, by our community. It's just, unfortunately, a product of the times, and we've gotten a lot better at that, but it does still happen. And the thing is, nowadays, it's unacceptable. You can look back on, like, the 80s or the 90s or something and look at stuff like that, and it's like, okay, it's not okay, but it was a product of the times, and at least we still got, honestly, very positive representation with this film. Let's be honest, this film was very, very much in favor, like, completely in favor of Andy's character. Hanks's character. Andy's not... Yeah, Andy was right. Completely in favor of him. He was the good guy. He was the one being victimized. He was the one who needed justice. And it makes a very huge point in this film about showing him as human. The last scene of this movie is clips of Andy as a kid, shown on a TV screen, home movies, that his family and loved ones and Joe and his wife are watching at his wake. The last scene of the movie makes it clear that this is a human story, first and foremost. And it shows a really important just fact that we need to be on the side of those in these kinds of situations. not only specifically through AIDS, but when people are discriminated against for just being who they are. We need to side with them. We need to agree with them in a way. It's not even a matter of agree or disagree. When human civil rights come into play, the entire it's just opinion argument is thrown out the window. Someone's human rights is not a matter of opinion. And this movie makes that very clear. And my God, did Andy have like the patience of a saint having to deal with a lot of the shit he dealt with. He pretty much never got visibly angry. He always held it in. He even dealing with the lawyer he hired. He could have represented himself, but he did end up going to other lawyers first. And he eventually did hire Joe, who was homophobic throughout a good portion of this film. Even having to deal with him, he kept calm. He never let it affect him. Not that it didn't bother him, not that it wasn't a problem for him. It just, he never let it cloud his judgment or change his mind, or he didn't let the homophobia win. And it's like, I like that, because I'm not like an angry person when suffering that, but I get really emotional when when anyone would be bigoted towards me or whatnot. I will get very like quiet. And this has happened in the wild too. It's happened at a cosplay event I went to. Couple of them actually, conventions and cosplay beach party, where I've been confronted by people about it, and I get very, I kind of close myself in. I would not be like he was in this movie and just be able to move on and just like handle myself. I would be very much closing myself off. That's just how I tend to handle a lot of stresses in my life. If anything, like really like stresses me out, especially really quickly, really suddenly, something just really, like someone says something like that to me, I just kind of close myself off and retreat into my shell. And I'm not going to say that's necessarily healthy as a response to that, but it's what I do. So Andy had definitely kind of the patience of a saint dealing with that, because I would have given up, honestly. Honestly, I probably would have never even brought that suit to court because I would have been too afraid to, if I'm just being completely honest. And obviously, like, no matter what you think of Tom Hanks playing this role or anything, all the actors in this did a phenomenal job. Everyone felt like they were really taking these roles seriously. You could tell Tom Hanks was putting everything into this performance, that he was taking the situation seriously. He never hammed it up or overacted, or it always seemed like he understood the severity of the real life situations that this is about. And everyone, not just him, but everyone felt that way, that they were taking this seriously. They took their roles seriously and had to portray, even in some cases, some bad things to get the point across. And you see this in movies like Schindler's List, where it's like, oh yeah, this shit is absolutely fucking terrible. I almost tried to combine terrible and horrible. But, I mean, it's valid. Like, yeah, watching Schindler's List, it's like, it's a movie literally about the Holocaust. It's like, oh, fucking, of course it's going to be terrible. It's going to be absolutely atrocious and hard to watch. And every actor made that clear with their performances, as did the writing, as did the direction, and this movie does that as well. It showcases how big of a deal the AIDS epidemic was. And honestly, this movie, even though it came out in 1993, it holds up. Not only just as a film in terms of its writing, its pacing, its acting and everything, but even in terms of its message. Because this is still, while the AIDS epidemic is of the past, it's like things like this still exist. Pandemics and epidemics, even notwithstanding, discrimination and wrongful terminations and stuff, that kind of stuff happens all the time. And of course, they always paint it as something else. They always do. Because legally, they can't fire someone just for being gay or stuff like that. So they have to paint it as something else. They'll find any excuse they can. Sometimes they'll even sabotage the employee to make them mess up in some way. And you see that kind of stuff in this film. And it's like, yeah, this is unfortunately real. And it's happened in a lot of cases for a lot of reasons. And it's fucked up. And again, the movie doesn't pull its punches in regards to that. It shows how terrible this is. And it makes it very clear why they fired him. Like, it's never actually a question. Like, they try to hide it. They try to dance around it during the court room scenes, during the trial and everything. But it's made very abundantly clear from the start what it's actually about. And it doesn't hide it. And once you get that, again, it makes sure to tell you what side that this movie is on. That it's clearly on Andy's side. That it's clearly on the LGBTQ plus community side. That the bigots and homophobes and the people who created and perpetuated the gay panic and everything, that they were in the wrong. So I know I haven't talked about like the actual events of the movie as much, but with a film like this, it's more about what it's talking about. It's more about its message, its themes, its ideas, and how that translates into real life, how it translates into things that are occurring. And in the current day, there are things occurring within the LGBTQ plus community, and governments and stuff, companies fighting against us. There's a lot of shit here in America with governments of different states trying to like criminalize transitioning for trans people, or the entire Don't Say Gay bill. These are things that still exist in 2022. These are issues, these are bigotries and biases that still exist. Like, what is it, 30 years after this movie came out? Practically. That's not okay. That's fucked up that these issues are still persisting. And again, things have gotten better, much better, but that's not enough. And we still need to have people talking about this kind of stuff and just fighting for the rights of people in this way. And so seeing this movie in 2022, it still matters. It's still relevant. As much as I wish it wouldn't be, it is. And I think it's actually important that I got to see this. I mean, just from a pure entertainment perspective, yes, I very much enjoyed this film. It was very well done. There were some weird cuts in it, admittedly, but it didn't take away really from the movie. From a pure entertainment standpoint, from just how well did I enjoy this film? Oh yeah, I very much did. But again, with a movie like this, it's about the messages and themes, and the fact that they're still relevant today means that seeing this movie, even in 2022, is important. So, I very much thank you, Venom, for introducing me to this. Again, I might have heard of this movie's name once or twice before. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know who was in it. I knew nothing about it. I just heard people mention the name. That's it. So I would have never checked this out. I would have never even considered it. I wouldn't have never thought about it. So, yeah, and that's kind of what, in a way, these donation rewards are about, because it's done that for a lot of movies for me. Movies that I would have never checked out that I end up loving. And again, with this one, it's like, it's not just in terms of an entertainment perspective, it's important that I got to see this. And I'm glad I did. I'm ecstatic that I got to experience this. So, thank you again, Venom, for choosing this as one of your donation rewards. But I would love to hear what all of you think. All of you who watch this movie either for the first time with this reaction or have seen this before, no matter how many times. I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think of this film? What do you think about its themes and its messages, its portrayals? If you know anything that you can elaborate on for me, I would love to hear it. I'm definitely going to look up to see if Legal Eagle made a video about this, because it definitely seems up his alley. He's talked about plenty of films like this. His My Cousin Vinny video was great. But I'm definitely interested to see maybe some reviews and stuff from different critics on YouTube and whatnot as well. But if you can elaborate on anything, any maybe questions I had or things I wasn't clear on, please do. I would love to learn more. I'm not always great at researching things. I get distracted very easily, and a lot of times I don't tend to like doing research because honestly it's boring. So getting to learn stuff through media, honestly, is the best and easiest way for me. So if you guys can help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. I would love to be able to use this channel to be able to expand my own knowledge. And hopefully I can use this channel to do the same for you guys. So, like I said, tell me your thoughts down below. And if you have any movies you would think of suggesting for a donation reward and are willing and able to donate, again, any amount is acceptable. Any amount gets you a donation reward, no matter how small. You can choose a movie, a series, something on YouTube, whatever you would like me to react to, as long as I haven't seen it. And that all can be discussed and everything. Whatever you would be able to, again, only if you are able to and willing to, because it's completely optional, and no matter what, content on the channel won't be behind a paywall. You'll be able to see everything that I record, no matter what. Reactions, top 10 lists, or whatever videos I tend to make. So it's just a completely optional way to kind of get you guys a little more involved, as well as, well, obviously, like we see with this film, to allow me to be able to see things that you guys think are worth seeing, that I would never have seen otherwise. I mean, I've seen so many amazing films I probably would not have watched without this. Schindler's List, The Green Mile, all these movies that I found to love. So yeah. But like I said, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to Venom for donating for this, and thank you to everyone for continuing to support me and the channel even with just your views. It means a lot. Tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you once again. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.